Hey guys, JB here from Alpha Wolf Consulting. Alrighty, on to the next segment, which is how do I build self-validation or my self-validation? Alrighty, so an important thing to understand when we're building up our self-validation is we've got to understand and identify, who am I? What do I think? What do I believe? And the only way to really understand that is for us to strip right back and really understand, what are my thoughts, what are my beliefs, okay, and what is all the other BS that has been implanted on me through conditioning from my environment. So to understand this further and to think about this further, we got to understand, when we're on social media, when we're listening to TV, when we're watching TV, when we're listening to the news, when we're listening to all these other people's opinions or their expressions or their ideas, or we're taking in information externally, we've got to be able to understand and separate between what am I creating from within my mind and what is external being implanted in my mind. Now, an easy way to understand this is go out and binge watch a series and see how your mind shifts. So when I say binge watch a series, when you watch something for a week or two straight, you'll notice a shift in your mind. Now, I noticed this early on in my life with different things that I was watching or different things that I was listening to. Okay, so for example, if I focus a lot of my attention on, current military, wars happening, current, things that are going wrong in the world, okay, my focus will start to be shifted there, and I'll start to desire those outcomes. So for example, for me, if I'm watching a lot of news about just the war in Ukraine right now, or about potential wars happening, I get I get ideas implanted into my head that I want to be there, that I want to go and, fight in war and all of that, and go and join up and all of that. And the reason for that is that all these different ideals and bits of information, bits of data will get implanted into my mind through my external environment. To the same, if I listen to motivational speeches for a week or two straight, okay, my mind will start to not reoccur, but I'll condition my mind into having that belief, and that information will be very predominant in our mind. And now the easiest way to understand this is to understand how our synaptic, I think it's just synaptic nerves, I don't know, but basically how your brain operates. So the more you think about a topic, the more that topic is present in your focus, the stronger those synaptic pathways will become. Okay, so we can use this understanding, okay, to artificially condition our mind through our environment by creating an environment that promotes what we want to promote. So for example, for me personally, when I work out at the gym, I usually won't listen to music. I'll usually listen to motivational speeches. And that's because I realized that I had a higher performance and I was able to push harder and push further and stay more focused when listening to motivational speeches. But I also realized that they were conditioning my mindset, and they were conditioning how I thought, how I felt, how I believed. Because if you're constantly having these, motivational stories, these, speeches and all of this, and this information, this very targeted, direct information being presented to your mind, okay, it becomes more predominant in your conscious thought. Okay, just to the same, if I'm watching negative things, if I'm watching drama, if I'm watching, if I'm on YouTube or Facebook and I'm seeing all of this negative BS and all of this societal bullshit, and all of that, I'm going to become more negative. Now, you can look at it in your mind, and the easiest test the easiest test to do is watch the news for 2 weeks, okay? So all you do is you get a journal, measure out how you think, how you feel about yourself, and then watch the news consistently for 2 to 4 hours a day for 14 days. And then come back and then write about yourself. And you'll understand that you actually shift what you think, what you feel, how your mental state is, your emotional state will change because you're constantly being bombarded by fear and negativity. Now, we've got to understand that in our life, okay, and in the exposure we have through, video and through social media and through the news and all of that, a lot of it is based on negativity. Now, the reason for this is people are drawn to negativity and they're more likely to focus on the negative things than they are to focus on the positive things. So an easy way to understand this is you can look at psychological studies that have been done where people are 2 times more likely to react to negative outcomes than they are to positive outcomes. A really great person that introduced that idea to me was a sales trainer in Australia, down in Melbourne, I think it is, and Dean Mannix is his name. And he proposed this idea in one of his sales courses that I did. Okay. And it's a really interesting thing to understand because we focus naturally so much on pain than we do on pleasure. Now, we always want pleasure, but our mind will focus on negative outcomes over positive outcomes. And and this isn't to say that everyone feels that way and that you feel that way. It's that our brains will naturally gravitate to that information because we don't want that negative outcome. So we focus on what we don't want. But unfortunately, where focus goes, energy flows. A great saying that I heard from Jordan Belfort. And what that means is whatever we focus on, we shift into our reality or we move towards. So if we're focusing on like the negativity in the news and things like that, our focus will be on that. So what happens is our reticular activation gland or something like that, I don't know what it's exactly called, but basically that's the part of your brain that focuses on identifying things. So when we think about things at a high level, in terms of we consistently think about something, what will happen is our brain will naturally identify those things for us. So an easy way to understand this is to understand it through evolution and how this developed in our brain. And this comes from natural survival instincts. So for example, if I am hungry, okay, my brain will look to identify food sources at a higher level than anything else, because that's my main focus. My main goal is to get food. Just like if I'm thirsty, I will, identify those, water sources and things like that. So it's an evolutionary trait that was developed, okay, and evolved in us over, millennia to help us move towards things that we need and identify things that we need. But unfortunately, our brain doesn't understand the difference between if I'm thinking about something going wrong in my life that may not be real, that may be an unwarranted fear, or if I'm thinking about something that's needed for survival. Okay, our brain cannot tell the difference. Our brain doesn't understand the difference because our conscious mind, okay, is where our logic, where our language and our conscious focus is, and our subconscious mind is where our emotions and feelings are. So they don't normally talk to each other quite easy because our subconscious doesn't understand logic and reason. You know what I mean? Just like our conscious brain doesn't understand emotions or feelings. That's why when we become emotional, we don't understand why. And we become irrational and we don't understand why. And we can logically say, oh, I'm emotional because of X, Y, and Z. But it's not that we understand why we're feeling emotional. Okay? We're just labeling it. So to really understand this, okay, when we're looking to build up our self-validation, is we have to know what is our truth, okay? Because there's no truth in the world outside of our mind. You have a different truth to me, just like I have a different truth to you. Now, we build it. How do we build our truths? We build our truths because our truths are based on belief, experience, and thought. Okay, so we can all come to the same conclusion on truth, but it's just we have to go through the same processes to understand it. Okay, so it's not to say that you think 100% different to me and I think 100% different to you. It's that we construct our beliefs based on our own bias of what we want, what we need, what we feel we should have, what we focus on, and all of that. So to really understand the importance of, who am I? What do I think? What do I truly believe? Okay, external from the external environment. So not based on the external environment, but based on my own truth, your own truth. Okay, and to do this is not a practice that we do once and we're set. This is something we have to condition into our mind. And it takes months to condition in new beliefs. Because what happens is if I do it once, and I think that's a great practice to do, and then I don't do it for another 2 weeks, nothing will ever change. I'll fall back into my behavioral patterns, because our behavioral patterns are based around habits. Okay, so our habits form our behaviors, and what forms our habits? Conscious thought in action. So whatever we consciously choose to do day in, day out becomes habitual, which then becomes a behavioral pattern. Now, why does it do that? And that's basically because how our brain is operated is to operate at maximum efficiency. So, for example, we want to do things that are easy for us to do because it requires less energy. So our brain looks to, take like these electrical signals in our brain, these thoughts look to take the shortest point from A to B. And generally the shortest point for a thought will be the synaptic pathway that is the strongest, that has expanded. So whatever we think about constantly, okay, becomes the quickest thought. That's why when we don't practice self-awareness, when we don't practice mindfulness, generally our behaviors and our habits are unconscious, okay? And generally they're unconscious because we're not aware of, what are our thoughts influencing in our beliefs, okay? And to understand this is to understand that our brain wants to take the easiest way. So it wants to do the most comfortable thing, and the most comfortable thing is the habitual thing. So that's why it's so, it's so easy to break a habit, but it's so hard to set a new habit. You know what I mean? It takes 2 weeks to break a habit, but it takes 3 months of repetition to create a new habit, because we've got to make our brain, we've got to work our brain so that that new habit becomes the way we operate. All right. So what we got to understand is that if we haven't been doing self-validation practices for most of our life, okay, which majority of us don't really do because of our external environment, because of how we grew up knowing, or not knowing, but being told that we needed to validate ourselves externally. Okay, we needed to be liked by others. We needed to, do what societal norms want us to do. We needed to, validate our schooling through our teachers, to validate our work through our bosses, to validate, our ideals on who we are based on societal figures. So, for example, majority of people back in the 90s and the early 2000s, a lot of who we were as people were based around the magazines and Hollywood and all of that. of these, you know, celebrities who sort of, you know, set the physique goals, or they, you know, they set the goals of who you should be, what kind of person we should be, and we all look to imitate. So to truly understand this, we have to understand that we've got to make those synaptic pathways for what we believe, what we feel, what we think the strongest, so they become the easiest activities for us to do. So how do you approach things? So for example, if you were to work out, we all understand how to exercise. No one doesn't actually understand how to exercise. If I ask you to lift a box, you know how to lift a box. You know what I mean? We've all got that information in us. But the problem is that society has told us, if you want to exercise, you have to do the proper exercises. Your body already knows the proper exercises. Your body knows how not to damage itself. Now, you may have bad posture and bad form and need to work on that, but the thing is that you know how to exercise. So you don't need someone to tell you how to exercise, but you don't feel like the way you think about doing it is the right way. And generally, you know, for me, that was a big thing that I always looked to, you know, validate externally. But for me, I realized at a young age was that there was never one way to do something, and that we should always look to get 4 or 5 different versions of how to do it, or theses on how to do it, and let's merge the best parts of it and leave out the rest. And then we create a higher performing thing. And then this is a natural way that my brain operates, and how I operate in building out processes within myself is I look to use the best information out there and find new and creative ways to do it that are unique for me, that are easier for me. So I only focus on, for example, in training, I have my workout regime. I don't really care if some personal trainer tells me that their way is better. It doesn't really matter to me. I know my way works because I've gone out and I've validated it, and I've done it through experience, and I've done it through, you know, basically trial and error is how I created it. And also through my theses on how to basically outperform other people, because competition, I grew up in a very competitive household, and throughout my life, I always looked to outcompete other people. So in any work environment that I ever did, I would always focus on being better than other people, because it meant I was more secure. But it wasn't the right way to go about it, because the only reason I was doing things was to be better than other people, opposed to doing them because I thought these ways were the right way to do it for me. So the problem is that how I was shaping my language, how I was constructing, you know, my beliefs was always rooted in the external environment. And it was only in my later years that I started to realize that I had to go through and rework it and change all the language that I was using. For example, I don't look to be better than other people these days in anything that I do. I just look to be the best that I can be. So, for example, I'll give you an example of sales. In sales, I don't try and get sales, okay? I just try and be a high performer. So I try to be the person that gets the most sales. In terms of, I try to make sure that how I present information and how I present myself is at the highest level that I think of as success. Okay. So for example, I try to build the strongest relationships. I try to see the most amount of people. I try to, you know, master my craft. I try to focus on learning as much as I can learn in the industry that I can be perceived as the expert, you know, through my knowledge. And this isn't a bad way to go about it. This is quite a good way, because rather than me trying to compete with others, all I have to do is focus on trying to be better than I was yesterday, you know, trying to consistently grow, trying to consistently refine myself, refine my approach. The way I talk about it is you're sharpening your spear. Okay. And if we focus on that attitude opposed to out-competing other people, because if I'm trying to out-compete other people, I'm always judging myself against them. So if they're doing better than me, I feel less. If I'm doing better than them, I feel more. Do you get it? Whereas if I focus on being better than myself yesterday than I was, or better today than I was yesterday, what I'm able to do is I'm able to measure my momentum, measure that gain in terms of, yesterday I may have made 5 mistakes and today I only made 4. You know what I mean? So I'm able to do little things where I can improve 10% per day, which in 10 days equals 100% improvement. All right. So, that's one thing to understand, is that it's not about one size fits all. It's about how do we get the best information that we can? How do we critically analyze is this information aligned with who I am, what I think, what I believe, and how I feel? And then how do we implement that to work with our own personal strengths, opposed to working with, other people's strengths? Because the one thing you got to understand in competition, okay, is if I want to outcompete you, what I want to do is identify your weaknesses, see where I am stronger, and I want to take you out of your strength and put you into my strength where I can perform at a higher level. So that's one of the things, is when I'm trying to compete, all I'm focused on is you. When I'm trying to better myself, all I'm focused on is me. And it's a much more stable way to go, because I don't have to worry about what you're doing. Because if I'm focused about what you're doing opposed to what I'm doing, then what happens is naturally I'll just start imitating you. Okay, I'll start taking your beliefs, I'll start taking your ideals, in terms of I'll just try and replicate. And that's what a lot of people do in life. We can see it all along. But a lot of people don't look to innovate, they just look to replicate. And that's, it's not a bad thing to replicate other people. But the bad thing comes when we cease to do any self-innovation, and we focus on, self-replication, on replicating other people. You know what I mean? And that's the big problem, because we're not really, any success that I would have wasn't truly because of me. It was because of other people's processes that I was using. And it never made me feel confident about myself, feel confident about my ideals or ideas or my abilities. So what we really got to understand is we got to really validate our ideas, our beliefs, our thoughts, our feelings. How do we feel in the moment? Is this something that makes me feel good, makes me smile? Because one thing you'll notice in life is the things that make you happy are the easiest things to do. The things that make you unhappy are like trying to climb Mount Everest. They are difficult and dangerous feeling to us, and we just don't want to do them. And what's the point of forcing yourself through life doing someone else, like living someone else's life, or doing someone else's process, or following in someone else's footsteps? If you truly admire that person and that's how you want to live, it's a great way to live. But if you don't admire them, or you don't feel like that's how you want to live, you'll always have that imposter syndrome feeling, because you'll never truly feel like you're being your authentic self. You'll always feel like a shell of yourself, in silent desperation, always waiting, wishing and hoping that things would be better, that things would get better, that one day you would be seen. And, it's not a way to live, because it's a very disempowering way to live. Whereas, when we understand our authentic self and our authentic thoughts and our authentic beliefs and our authentic feelings and authentically who we want to be, that's where the power comes from. But the other power comes from awareness, all right? Being able to be aware of how my thoughts influence my beliefs, how my beliefs influence my feelings, how my feelings influence my motivation, influence my worth, influence the actions or the activities that I take to do things. Because you always want to be doing something that lights you up, because what's the point? The end of life is death. There is no such thing as a great life, because it's so arbitrary, because it's subjective to who you're talking to. So your idea of a great life might be different to my idea of a great life. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means for you, your idea of a great life is the best idea for you. My idea for a great life is the best for me. So we have to be aware of that, because otherwise we're just waiting to die, living in someone else's shadow. And that is no way to live. Every moment, every day that you get up, you should be lit up with the, enthusiasm and excitement to get out there and follow your dreams, to progress the projects that truly mean something to you, the things that inspire you. And it's not about big or small, because for some people, what is considered a small life is the most inspirational life for them. For other people, what is considered a big life is the most inspirational thing for them. Like, it doesn't matter, because there's no overarching criteria of what is a good life. If you wake up every day and you're happy, you're healthy, you're fed, your needs are met, you're gonna be living with a smile. And if you can live every day smiling, well, at least you're gonna have a good face, because it takes like, I don't know how many muscles, but it takes more muscles to smile than it does to frown. So you get a better workout for your face smiling than you do frowning. Frowning causes your lines up here. Frowning causes your crow's feet. Whereas if you smile, all you're going to get is dimples. But to digress back from that, what we got to understand, okay, is the narratives, okay? That's the truth to our validation, is we're trying to validate the language, the beliefs, on the narratives that we tell ourselves. And we're trying to take control of that narrative so that we can decide, if something happens to me, like, for example, I get hit by a car tomorrow and my leg is broken. Okay, I can control that narrative from me living in a negative state of, I am now, limited because my leg is broken. I can't do as much. So then I'll be upset. You know what I mean? Or this will be, I'll be stuck running around in my mind of, oh, woe is me, why did this happen to me? When we can change the narrative and control the narrative, nothing bad ever happens to us. And the easiest way to do this is just through awareness and mindfulness. So one practice I have is, every time something, I perceive as being bad happens to me, all I have to do is think about someone in the world who's struggling to survive, struggling to eat, that doesn't have any opportunity in life, where they're unable to get schooling, where, their security is not there in terms of physical security, like active war zones and things like that. Like, all you have to do is think of Afghanistan, parts of Africa, Ukraine at the moment. Like, in these countries, living and dying is not guaranteed. Like, you're not guaranteed to live every day, because at any moment, because there's active wars going on there, you could be killed by a stray missile, by a stray bomb. There may be a mine on the side of the road that could kill you. There may be unexploded ordnance that may go off. You know what I mean? So you got to understand, when we're able to put things in perspective, we're able to see that, you know, these things happening to me, while to me they're quite bad in comparison to where I was, you know, but in comparison with the perspective of, you know, what is truly bad in this world, in terms of, you know, not having enough drinking water, you know, not having access to medicine, not having access to food, not having the opportunity for employment, you know, not having the opportunity to get money. Like, there are some people out there to where their greatest opportunity at the moment is $4 to $5 a month. Okay. So when we understand that, we understand true struggle. And when we understand true struggle, it just helps us in detaching from our situation, from this situation that we're going through, to, you know, this event or this negative situation that I'm going through. Like, you know, is it really that bad? And when we're able to take control of that narrative, we're able to get the empowerment back. Because when we realize it's not that bad, and it's sort of just happening, and it's not happening directly to me, and, you know, the world's not out to get me, and the universe isn't working against me, and all of this, we get our power back. We become more creative. Now, a big thing you got to understand is there's two states that you'll ever be in. Okay, there's the empowered state and the disempowered state. In the disempowered state, it's harder to think. Like trying to access memory, trying to access information from our brain, confidence, all of that is much more difficult. When we're in an empowered state, okay, we're able to access that information like that rapidly. We're able to access our knowledge quicker. We feel more confident. We feel more abundant. We feel more positive. Okay. And these are just states of mind, and all they are states of thinking. One is that the world is happening for me. You know, the universe is helping me. One is the world is against me. The universe is against me. Because when we feel like people are against us, we feel like we lose our control, and we give our control up to the situation. Whereas when we understand that, you know, even in the worst situations in life, okay, if we understand that the world and life isn't going against us, and the universe isn't out plotting our demise, we feel empowered that we have the power to change things. We have the power to improve and innovate and do better. Okay, so really understand that, because once we get into our narrative and we understand our narrative, then we can start working on our limiting beliefs. Those beliefs that we hold that basically, you know, I can't do this because of this. If I do this, this will happen. You know, this never happens for me. And what we're able to do is we're able to shift that. So for example, let's take love. Let's say, we'll take me, for example. Many times I've dated people, thought I was in love, and, you know, I've been my genuine self. I've given everything, given 110%, and failed. You know, not so much that I failed, but, you know, the other person rejected me. They abandoned me. I felt abandoned and rejected. You know, never good enough. So the narrative I would create subconsciously was, you know, this person doesn't want me. Why don't they want me? I'm not good enough. I'll never be good enough. No one will ever want me. And the thing is that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. Where focus goes, energy flows. So whatever we think of as being real, or whatever we think of as happening, or whatever we tell ourselves, or whatever thought we focus on, we will move towards that. We will attract that, because our mind will spot that, will identify it easier. Our brain will make it easier to find that narrative in the world. Okay, to where our defense mechanism may be that no one will ever want me, I should never want to be with anyone, and all of that, and we shut ourselves down. That's a disempowered state. That's a state where we're not certain about who we are as being valuable. That's a state where we don't ever feel good enough. That's a state where we always feel like this is going to be a reoccurring cycle. So we never want to, we want to guard ourselves. And that's no way to live. You should live free and happy regardless of if people love you, if they don't, if they abandon you, if they don't. So the flip side to this is understanding that, it's not that someone rejected me. They just told me that they didn't want to be with me. That's not a bad thing. I'm not some authoritarian dictator that's out saying everyone must be with me. If I want to be with you, you have to be with me. No, the truth is, and the true narrative is, they save me time because they tell me exactly, what they want in life, and that's not to be around me, which is easy because then it makes it easier to move on. But the thing I got to understand, okay, in those moments is that they're not doing anything to me. They're just doing what is, the best choice for them, or what they feel is the best choice for them in the moment. Okay. And then what I'm able to do is I'm able to shift that narrative. And I'm able to shift that narrative from them abandoning me to them they're just leaving. It's not that they're doing anything to me, because unless I had taken actions, or unless who I was or how I was treating other people was negative, okay, then it's not that they're doing something to me. Now, if I was a dick and an asshole and I was treating them like shit, that'd be a different story. So that's what shifting the narrative does. When we stop playing the victim, we're able to look at ourselves and say, how did you perform in that moment? How did you show up? Did you show up good, or did you show up bad? Okay. And we're able to fix what we need to fix so that we can be better and grow from the situation. And then what we're able to do is, instead of us closing off, we understand that it just wasn't right. It wasn't meant to be. And that's okay. You know what I mean? It's okay if it doesn't work out. It doesn't always have to work out perfectly fine. You know what I mean? So what we're able to do is, instead of us feeling a need to protect ourselves and guard ourselves, we're able to live freely. Because, it's not that people are rejecting us when they don't want to date us or be with us. Okay? It's that we get that that compulsive desire of, I want this has to be, and all of that. And that's when we get that unhealthy attachment. And for me personally, I had codependency issues. So what that meant, okay, and what codependency means is that I felt I needed, to be with them. And what happened was, I would make up and shift the narrative and change my narrative around to I had to be with them. And that caused some very, not unpleasant, but it caused negative manifestations in my behavior, to where I would become clingy, to where I would overlook those red flags, to where I would lower my self-worth and put up with what should never have been accepted. And that's the thing we got to understand is when someone leaves us and we feel heartbroken and distraught, we have to look at ourselves and say, is there something where I was, maybe codependent in that situation? Or was I overlooking the red flags? Was I making excuses for other people? A key thing to understand in boundaries, because boundaries are a very important aspect of self-validation. Because when we validate who we are as being someone of worth to us, of someone of value, okay, we have to set boundaries with other people. Other people don't understand how to treat me. Like, it's not your responsibility to understand how I want to be treated. It's my responsibility to set clear boundaries of this is acceptable behavior with me, this is unacceptable behavior. Just to the same, it's your responsibility to set those same boundaries for you. And it's not about like, you do something to me, I punch you in the face because my boundaries set. No, it's that if you do something that I don't accept, I'll talk to you and explain it to you and say, look, this is unacceptable behavior to me. Okay. If you don't accept that I want to be treated this way, okay, then I will turn around and leave. And the key thing is, it's not on them. Okay. The responsibility isn't on anyone else to enforce my boundaries. The responsibility is on me for me. And that's an important thing we got to understand in self-validation is we got to understand that our boundaries are how we prove to ourselves our self-worth. Because our boundaries are, if I say to someone that I'm dating, look, I don't appreciate being cheated on. If you cheat on me, I will leave you in a heartbeat without hesitation. And then they go and do it and I don't leave them. What am I saying to myself? Or if I go back to someone who treated me like that, what am I saying to myself? How am I saying, to my internal self, you're worth nothing? So that's a good thing to understand, is that when we're setting our boundaries, okay, the responsibility is on me to enforce my boundaries. And a key revelation I had in boundaries, okay, is, have you ever noticed how, when you're someone of clear boundaries, okay, people like strangers always treat you better than the people close to you. Okay. And the reason for that is we make excuses for the people who are close to us. So for example, if someone's close to me and they do something that I don't agree with, in terms of they treat me in a way that I don't accept, and I let it slide because of the relationship I hold with them, I am promoting to them that that's acceptable behavior to do around me. So if you ever find people close to you are misusing you or mistreating you, or they're taking advantage of you, you've got to understand that that's because you're not clearly defining your boundaries and clearly enforcing them. So the way I explain it to people is, you should treat, okay, the closest family members that you have like a stranger on the street. For example, if a stranger on the street came up to me and said I was a piece of shit, I'd say, do you want your teeth kicked in? And then they'd probably say, no, I don't. Or we'd go into a fight. But, pick your battles as well. That's an important thing. But the thing you got to understand is how I treat strangers in terms of what I'm willing to accept in terms of behavior is much different to how I used to treat people close to me. People close to me, I used to let slide. I'd let them treat me like shit, because, I know this person isn't a bad person. This person isn't, they're just having a rough day. Doesn't matter. What I've realized is you must be as vicious with your closest relations as you would be with a stranger. So if a stranger walked up to you and slapped you in the face, punch them straight back. If a family member comes up to you and slaps you in the face for no reason, punch them straight back. They won't do it again. That's the thing. You don't have to, it's not about violence, but it's about like understanding, like treat people equally. Okay. And have that equal respect with yourself, that it doesn't matter how close we are. You will treat me how I would like to be treated. Otherwise, I leave your life. So that's the way around it. It's not about violence, but it's more about I disengage from the situation. I disengage from the relationship. For me personally, if someone walked up to me and slapped me, I'd knock them clean out. That's just me. I don't appreciate being attacked, so I attack people back. but I'm not promoting violence and I'm not promoting anything like that. But what I'm saying is you've got to set your boundaries of each behavior, or each of these boundaries has clear, clear responses of, if you do this, my action will be this. And you must clearly explain it to other people to say to them, look, I don't accept being treated like that. If you treat me like that, this is the result. I will turn away and I will leave and I will not give you a second chance. I forgive you, but I don't give you a second chance. And you explain that. And you know what they say about play stupid games, win stupid prizes. If people want to try and challenge you on that, you have to be willing to do that. So if you say to someone, if you treat me like shit, okay, in a relationship, and you treat me like I'm worth less than you and that I'm an option, I will leave you. And if they try and play games and do that, you turn around and you leave them. And you don't accept an apology. Like, you forgive them, but you don't accept their apology if they want to take you back. You don't go back there. Because if you go back there, what you're saying to yourself is that, oh no, you don't, like these boundaries don't mean anything. So really understand that we have to be firm in our decision. It's not that, we hold on to grudges or anything like that. Forgive everyone. But don't accept, just because you forgive them, that they get a pass. Everyone's got to earn their way back if they want to come back. You know what I mean? And that's an important thing that I had to learn in really understanding how to build validation, like self-validation within myself, is it's not just about me validating my opinion, but it's about me enforcing how I would like to be treated, how I would like to be respected. You know what I mean? How I expect others to treat me, how I expect myself to treat others. Because it's the same on the other end. So, for example, if I demand other people respect me, I demand that I respect other people. So if I do something disrespectful to someone else, I pull myself up. If someone around me is being disrespectful to someone else, I pull them up and say, this is unacceptable behavior in my presence. I am the enforcer. It's not about violence. It's not about, causing, confrontation, but it's about saying, this is the acceptable behavioral limit. If you cross that, that's okay, but I turn and walk away. Okay? Because I don't know if you've ever had any friends or family members or anything like that, but I have a big thing. If people disrespect servers or disrespect people, we're going out to eat and they disrespect the wait staff, I, in front of the wait staff, will call them out. And I will say that's unacceptable behavior. You should apologize to them while the wait staff are there. And it's not to put them on display or anything. It's that, no, you've got to shut that down straight there. But I have a lot stricter beliefs than most others. So it's not that you take on what I say, but it's that you determine what are your acceptable limits, okay, of behavior and things like that, and how people treat each other. Mine is respect. If I see someone disrespect someone else, okay, I will become quite confrontational towards that person, because I just believe that everyone should respect everyone else, because there's two sides of us. There's a respectful side and there's a disrespectful side. If you choose to take the path of disrespect with me, I choose to show you the disrespectful side of me. And the disrespectful side of me is highly aggressive and highly violent. Okay? So that's an important thing to understand, but it's also to understand that a key thing I want to point out is violence isn't always the option, but in some circumstances, violence is the only option. So you can choose to not take violence, but in certain situations, I choose to take violence. Okay? And I am unapologetic for that. In certain circumstances, for example, if I see someone hit a dog, I'm not going to come up there and confront you. I'm going to come up there and hit you square in the face. Never hit a dog in my presence. You will get your teeth kicked in. Not you personally, but the person who hits a dog. Because I do not accept people, using their power over helpless animals. I don't accept that. I don't appreciate that. That's just one of my rules. It's the same if I see a man hit a woman. That man is going to have to fight me. I don't care if I win or lose. It's not about winning or losing. It's about the fun of the fight. Because if someone wants to hit a girl in my presence, oh boy, that's where you got to do some real pain to me to get me to calm down. So that's a little bit of a side note, but just understand that you've got to create those for yourself. It's a very important thing to understand, is that it's not about other people's beliefs, but it's about understanding what are your beliefs, okay? Understand what are your boundaries. You've got to determine them. You've got to set them. You've got to figure out and how you set your boundaries is you've got to set it based on what you believe is right for you, how you believe you want to be treated, how you feel that people should treat you. Because if someone's treating you in a way that makes you feel less and you accept that, what you're truly telling your subconscious is that I am worthless. I am worth less than this person. I am worth less than this confrontation. And what that does is that destroys your subconscious. That destroys all of that, all of that self-belief up here, all of that validation of who we are, destroys our identity. And it's not about win or lose, okay? Because there's no win or lose in these situations. There only is and what is not. So what is acceptable and what is not acceptable, okay? So these are quite important things that I realized, and these are the ways that I build it within myself to make myself a more confident and whole person, because, think of self-validation like health or wealth, right? It's not a one-time thing, okay? Unless you win the lotto, right? And then you go and you win the lotto and you get $100 million. And then you go and you find the greatest financial advisor to take care of all your money. It's not a one-time thing. Wealth is something that is built step by step by step. And all it takes is one wrong move and you can lose it all. So we have to respect it. We've got to respect our health by the foods we eat, by exercising, things like that. But we've also got to respect our wealth. Are we doing the things that we need to do to get ourselves to where we want to be, to live the kind of life we want to live? Just like our self-validation or our self-esteem or our self-worth or our self-value or our self-belief. Are we doing the things that get us to where we want to be? It's a day in, day out thing. Because you got to understand, external validation, right, is like a drug. Why is it like a drug? Because a drug is just a habit. Okay, now we're not talking about the addictive aspects of a drug, but majority of, addicts, if it be alcohol, if it be cigarettes, if it be, food, if it be sex, if it be, hardcore drugs, when we take out the element of the addictive substance, okay, and we look at it, majority of it is habitual. So for example, for smokers, the hardest thing about giving up smoking is that you miss having that time, that habit. Because if you watch a smoker, generally it's once every hour after they eat, when they wake up, with their morning coffee, with a wine at night. It's these little habits and rituals, and they're the hard things to break. So you got to understand that, if we haven't been self-validating our beliefs and our thoughts and our feelings, and we've been externally validating them, then it's an easy habit to fall back into. Okay, so we gotta understand that, and when we go to do it, it's not about chastising ourselves and saying, "Oh, you piece of shit for trying to externally validate." No, it's that we got to have that mindfulness and awareness to why, and question ourselves. Why are you looking to externally validate? Why are you looking to find out what other people think? You know what you think. All right. So that's just a little bit on how I build out the self-validation. I hope it helps. And I'll see you on the next one. Thanks so much. All right. Bye.